Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday, wherever you are. Um, Welcome to another episode of Career Trek. I'm ready, ready to go. Have my cup of favorite black coffee with me. I hope you have your drink ready. Uh, Waiting for the next 1 hour of riveting conversation. For those of you who don't know Career Trek, I call this as a self-help talent management tool, and Career Trek comes to you in different forms. Um, Through my LinkedIn blogs, I blog technically every day on different aspects of career. It's a passion project of mine. I've called it as 100 Days Career Trek. I'm closer to day 80 of those 100 days. The other side of Career Trek is LinkedIn live sessions with CXOs. Those of us, so I've handpicked leaders who have had stellar careers and made it big, so to say. But beyond the success, there's a lot that we can learn from their journeys, and the endeavor is to bring those journeys to you and those lessons to you, right? So, in that sequence, today I have another fantastic leader, someone whom I met recently at the Goa CXO conference. Thanks to ETHR for that. I've seen him in action. Um, this is the longest that you will see me talk because once we open the floor, I'm sure it's very difficult to very difficult for anyone else to be visible on the screen beyond him. Not to say it's all about him. That's his energy, enthusiasm, and passion, and more so for a subject like this. Thanks to him for accepting the offer to give time to us. So, on that note, let me welcome Mr. Manpreet Singh Ahuja, the Chief Digital Officer of PwC. Let me bring him on the screen. Hi, Manpreet.
Hey coach, how are you?
Good, 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 good. I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I normally am not as energized for a Sunday conversation, but this is such an interesting topic. Takes me back to my sort of struggle years, and therefore I'm all smiles.
Fantastic. Right, I'm sure there will be many of you who would have been waiting for this conversation. So just put in through your comments. Uh, Wherever you're logging in from, just share a line, your name, where you're logging in from, location, and share a message from Manpreet as we get on with the conversation. So Manpreet, we as in I've been intrigued by your career, the journey, and the short. Uh, okay, yeah, the short conversation that we had before the live session. I'm sure there's a lot. You can technically write a book from the learnings of your career journey. But in short, if you were to just as an opening or a starter, what would you say are the success mantras of a career?
So just a couple of caveats, Ram and the audience. I'm not a guy who's brief, so I will open my heart out and speak the details. And second thing, there's two sides of the class. There is this one part that looks extremely glamorous, successful. Everything seems to have fallen in place. You're a young leader. You've achieved things. Lots of good stories around it. But I'm in the zone where I want to actually make myself a little more vulnerable and tell you the real story behind the man. And behind that great success were a bunch of failures, pretty much across the board, through various stages of life. And I actually want to talk a little bit about those, so you can connect the dots and say how you can still make a great life and a great career by just learning from those failures and moving ahead. So that's how I plan to flow. If that's okay, Coach Ram, I can dive into that topic and get rolling.
Perfect. That would be great, Manpreet. We can get started.
Fantastic. So guys, I am a chartered accountant. I am currently the chief digital officer in the firm, and I also run the TMT sales. As I said, great story, and I'm young. I'm still. I mean, some of you may not find me young enough, but from a corporate lens perspective, I'm like a 43-year-old. Still have 17 years of career ahead of me. So when I go back to the growing up years, when I got into grade 11th, I chose to take commerce. I was the only commerce guy in the family. Everybody else was sciences, and everybody kind of frowned, saying, "Seriously, you don't seem to have it in you to be an engineer." Kind of a piece. And I somehow took a call and said that's the space I want to be in. So I started off with a little bit of a back foot. Their family frowning at me was a piece that I had to digest. That was also the age where my dad took a transfer from Delhi to Shimla, a smaller city, and I was a Delhi
Mhm.
guy moving to Shimla, picking up commerce. So, you almost went there with a little bit of a chip on the shoulder saying, छोटे शहर में जा रहे हो, you'll possibly be a city topper, state topper. Any which ways, you're kind of so, you're downgrading yourself to commerce, I mean, to thinking at that time. So hopefully, and I was a smart guy, I was an intelligent guy. It wasn't as though I didn't have enough grades to get to anything else. So very clear,
Mhm.
okay, I'll prove a point, be the guy who will stand out in that city. But so was life. I went to a smaller city. My class had about 22 people, and I did not even stand first in my class, which was a little bit of a shock, but so is life. And then it was very, very clear when I taken commerce, and all my initial research said if you take commerce and if you get to either a Stephens or SRCC, your career is largely sorted. That's like a first validation of the right path. I mean, that's your IIT. And I was very sure. My walls also had this is the college I'll get to, and I was a very planned guy. And despite being second in my school, when I came to Delhi looking out for university admissions, forget about getting SRCC. I didn't get North Campus. So it was almost like dreams beginning to shatter. Shit, where did I get into? Uh, and then the next source of validation to yourself can be, it doesn't matter whether you're SRCC or not. If you are going to become a chartered accountant, and if you get to a big four, that's really where the cream is. And hopefully you're smart enough to crack a big four. And I know you've lost some of the chances by not being in an SRCC, but it's not as though they don't hire from outside. You can be a guy who stands out, like I wanted to stand out in a small city. You'll possibly get there. Guess what? I did not get to a big four. I applied in all the firms. I was not even called for an interview. So suddenly, all the dreams of a young boy were beginning to get smoky, shady, and I was beginning to lose confidence that, just about everything seems to be a great story in your mind, but nothing transpires. And then from there on, instead of a big four, I actually joined a smaller firm. Uh, uh, and that too, some of the firms where I went and interviewed were not very aspirational, but it felt like you had to interview and prove yourself to get a job there. But I
Mhm.
did get to a smaller firm, which honestly was a great experience. And I'll connect the dots as to how each one of these things made a difference to my life and helped me accelerate to where I got to. But that's where I was. And as I got to the smaller firm, I got the next layer of validation in my mind saying, you know what, it doesn't matter whether you're a big firm or a small firm. There are only, a limited number of people who become rank holders in CA, and that's the national stamp. And if you can be a rank holder, every big four will chase you once again. So the next focus was let's get the rank and get everything. सारे पाप धुल जाएंगे अगर आपका rank आ जाएगा तो. And guess what? I did not get a rank. And to make it worse, once I did not get the rank in the intermediate, the next story was most people fail their CA exam. Even if you are a first time, first shot qualified, that's a great story. And at least be in that zone. The 5% people who've never failed in a CA exam. Guess what? In my final, I cleared one group and I failed the other group. So, this is where my formative years of shaping, dreaming a career were. And again, as I said, amidst that glamorous story, when you look behind, and if I was a equity investor, I would have not necessarily invested in me at that point in time. I don't fit all the ticks at that stage. But why did this help me? Right? It helped me fundamentally because I was a dreamer always. I was ambitious. I had ideas,
Mhm.
but but all this while, the 3 4 years where things were not falling in place, that ability to fail and set the next goal for yourself is something that just became like an absolute DNA and a habit. Like if you look at it, small city doesn't matter, I'll come first. You didn't top the college, doesn't matter, I'll get to a big four. Didn't get to a big four, don't know what, no worry, I'll stand out in a small firm. I mean, you kept inspiring yourself by setting another achievable goal and not giving up. That gave you that skin of having a perseverance oriented mindset, which was extremely helpful. That gave you a sense of humility that made you realize that there is a whole world possibly better than you, and you've got to potentially bring your best attitude at work to really stand up and get to that crowd. That gave you that feeling of not being complacent, not being arrogant, and having a goal to run towards. And honestly speaking,
Now,
in
like they
that
say,
journey,
if I
yeah.
can, if I can come in there, like they say, success has many owners and failure is an orphan. Uh, the story looks brilliant in hindsight, but when you started off and when you had those initial struggles, I'm sure there's no one. And like you said, if you were an investor, you would not have invested in yourself. Uh, what do you think kept you going? And it's that self-image that you are at the very beginning of the stage. It's like, okay, all that I thought was dream, this is reality hitting me. Or how did you back
See, I'll
yourself
tell
up?
you, Coach Ram, I think one thing that stayed in me all along these 42 years is I've been a dreamer. I am a dreamer. There is, even in the worst, you may be throwing me off the cliff, I will still dream saying maybe I begin to start flying. And that trait, I think, is potentially one thing that's helped me in good stead always. So never felt
Mm,
like an orphan when I was failing, because there was this next dream that I was chasing already, right? And
mm,
and sometimes failures lead to humility, and the desire to potentially get to that dream gets you some genuine curiosity to learn from people who are better off than you. And because maybe, as you're saying, you could be an orphan during a failure, there is this genuine interest in building true relationships that can help you cross the tide. And if you again look back at corporate success, and coach, you'll kind of relate this to yourself, add all three things together, you make some of the best relationships in life. If you've got humility, if you've got genuine curiosity to learn, and if you've got the intent to invest in a relationship, these three things are your mantra for any connection in life, right? And then the 7 degrees of separation and these three attitudes, you can pretty much go to any person on earth. So I actually think these traits got embedded in me because of some of the failures that I had, and are things that I can really count and grow on in my next 17 years of life. So those are
got
some things that
your
that help a difference. And when you
humility.
connect, sure,
Yeah,
just one more
no,
thought. And when you connect the
yeah,
dots
please.
back, Coach Ram, and so is the power of, and maybe this is spirituality coming in. When you connect the dots, you realize this was the best thing that could have happened to you. Because I mean, give you a tiny example. If I had gone to SRCC, I would have done my 3 years of graduation, and I would have then figured out what's a good path to take. Maybe I would have gone to a B school, maybe I would have pursued a CA path. Because I went to a college that wasn't an aspirational list at that point in time. I mean, I was in Bhagat Singh College, it's a good college. I mean, thank God for what they gave me. But, in about a year's time, I was out doing a foundation and looking for an articleship because I was trying to validate myself through another route. That gave me 2 extra years in my life. I mean, I started my articleship when I was a 19-year-old. I was moved to Bombay working for Tata Group at a 19 and a half, living by myself. So, I mean, for all you care, that experience and exposure that I would have gotten at 23, 24, I began getting at 19 and a half. Couldn't happen if I had not failed that ambition. So each one of these things make it easier. I mean, that small firm and the innate desire to be the best in that small firm would have not happened if potentially I had picked up a big four. I would have been a happier dude. So I really went, I mean, the call of a 19-year-old to say, I'm going to duck college and be in Bombay by myself without a mobile phone. There were no mobiles at that point in time. At a 2,000 rupee monthly salary was the choice I had to make. I could have gone back and said, नहीं मैं घर पे रहूंगा, कैट की तैयारी करूंगा और MBA दूंगा. I mean, some of these failures made you take those hard calls because you were chasing a dream.
Interesting. So to recap the first part, you're saying, humility, curiosity, and building relationships. These the three attitudes that sort of give you the success. And I really like the part where you mentioned, because you did not get the best, you actually and but the drive forced you to look at alternate paths. and that alternate paths sort of accelerated what you would have otherwise not done. I think that's a great, because we usually tend to, when you say failure is an opportunity or problem is an opportunity, I think there's a great validation to that, because it's forcing you to look at alternate paths, the road less traveled, probably take a bigger bet on yourself, and you have something to prove to yourself that makes you take those paths.
No, Ram, absolutely. I can tell you even right now, the amount of
Mhm.
value I attach to a failed entrepreneur when I'm hiring for my leadership team is
Mhm.
significantly more than somebody who's only succeeded all their life. I mean, if you haven't seen failures and if you don't have the ability to fight a failure and come back and succeed, you potentially will fail one day and you'll not be able to stand up. So, I
Mm.
mean, it's a great life skill. And I mean, my 12-year-old son, the only advice I give him is I'd love for you to be a failed entrepreneur when you're 14, 15, 16. Sooner the better.
Yeah. So yeah, failure teaches a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, so moving on. So I would like you to. That was the first moment that you shared, uh, where you made that move to not getting into your desired college, not getting into your desired company, but still then you made way. You looked at alternate paths to progress in your career. Um, I'm sure there would be few more sort of defining moments in
I'll
your
give you
career
another
as
small example. Just building
yeah.
upon this, just building upon the same theme, Ram.
Mhm.
Again, as I said, innate desire to work for a big four. Managed to get
Mhm.
into a small firm. 3 years into that job, I did get, as I qualified and became a chartered accountant, I started getting calls from the big four at that point in time. And one of the big fours called me, and again, innate desire to work for a big four, very satisfying, gratifying. And they called me for an interview, went through 3 rounds, and in the end, they said, "Okay, great, you're hired. We like you to work for our, audit practice, assurance practice. That's where most chartered accountants go and work." And
Hmm.
I had in this smaller firm picked up a capability called risk management, internal controls, process audits, process excellence. That's the space I was working on. And again, when you are a intern, article, 3 years, you don't shape your career in life and destiny basis those 3 years. It's a small firm, right? I typically go back. I mean, the general sense will say, reinvent yourself with this next organization. You're getting an entry, please get into this large big brand. I don't know what happened at that time. I had the courage to actually refuse that job from a big four. Innate desire, burning need to be in a big four. I finally get an offer from a big four. They want me to work for the audit practice. I'd actually seen their website and I knew there was a business called Global Risk Management Solutions, GRMS. That looked
Okay.
fancy, that looked aspirational, that was the dream that I was running in this small firm. I said, but you have a business called GRMS. Why don't I fit into that business? They said that's a boutique business. We don't really have a lot of scale there. And right now we're looking at bulk hiring in the audit business. Make a choice. I asked him, saying, is there a way of rotating into that business? They said, no, that's a specialist business. We do separate hiring. I said, then I won't take this offer. They said, are you sure about it? I said, yes, I'm sure about it. I walked away from the room without an offer. I'd flown from Bombay to Delhi for that interview. I paid the air ticket out of my own pocket for a guy who makes 2 to 5 thousand a month. Was a ton of money. And I walked away from that offer. Guess what? Maybe it was the most idiotic job. While flying back, I kept thinking, was that a right decision, or was I just, a young dude taking a call? Guess what? 45 days later, I get a call back from one of the interviewers in the room, saying, "I've never seen a nerd like you. You walked away from a job, uh, and your innate desire to work in risk just kind of really mesmerizes me. Are you serious? You want to make a career in risk? Are you sure about it?" I said, "Of course." I was very clear. He says, "Fly back again, and I want to interview you for that role." And this time I
Okay.
actually said, "You know what? I'm not flying on my own pocket. You have to take the ticket." They funded the ticket. I flew in, had 3 interviews again. At the end of that 50th day, I had the offer in hand, joined the Big Four in my chosen area. And again, connecting the dots, it was a great place to be, because if I was one in the audit business, I would have been one amongst 1,000. I was one amongst 30 in that new business that was being launched. And that's the business that I grew up to leading in PwC just a few years back.
Wow. That's a great story of great. So interesting. how were you so pretty sure that you wanted to be in risk, and this urge to be part of a big four? I'm sure that's a dream that you have lived for a long time. And didn't that didn't it make you feel even at a point saying, "Let me get in and then figure it out"? What gave you that conviction, courage to say no to be part of that, to say no to that offer?
I don't know. Maybe it's the hand of God. I can make a story right now. I really don't know how I found it, mustered the courage at that stage. But one other advantage, and I'm connecting the dots. One other advantage with failures that comes through is your ability to create a story, your ability to create, you know, a dream, and fitting yourself into that journey of dream gets you intuitively a sales capability, which again is another skill that helps you through the life. I mean, the joke for me that runs in my pockets of friends is you can sell a sand to Arab, right? And when I was working for the smaller firm, I used to keep telling myself, saying why I am in a niche firm, boutique, that specializes in process and risk, and India is not mature in that capability at this point in time. And I'm working for good clients while working for a smaller firm. I was working for Tata Group at that point in time, advising Tata Group at that time in those years of internship. And I had kind of so wired my mind saying, I'm in a niche firm, I'm working on a niche capability, I'm better off than some of the others. It's going to be a great story in India. Risk management, there is no, I mean, you know who the, you don't know who the father of corporate governance in the country is. You don't know who the best guy in the risk in the country is. And there is this space out there that you'll grab one day. And maybe because you were always trying to project and build a narrative, that just wired my mind saying that's the dream I want to chase. And that helped me prioritize a role over the company, and eventually the company came over.
Fantastic.
So
I like that.
Naveen makes that point. Positive attitude. I mean, I can absolutely tell you, IQ can get you the job, right? IQ can get you the role. It is the EQ that makes you a leader. So attitude by stretch is the single most important thing that's needed to succeed. Completely agree. I mean, if I have two people, great IQ, poor attitude, great attitude, average IQ, any day, 10 on 10 times, I'll go for great attitude, average IQ. And if you happen to be both, nothing like it. You're meant to be super successful.
Right, here is I'm so happy to see this comment. This is our managing director, Mr. V.S. Ganesh. He's I think adding on to what you said, he's saying your best performance is a measure of your ability, and your average performance is a measure of your motivation. So, would you want to add to that?
Wow, that's just so fantastic. I'm actually taking a picture of this quote.
I'll send it to you. Mr. V.S. Ganesh is a symbol of humility. So when you spoke about three career mantras, starting with humility, I think he's one who epitomizes humility. I'm sure I'm going to have a conversation with him on this after the show. So please go ahead.
No, I mean, I completely echo this. The way I kind of wire this in my mind is, and there's a good friend who keeps making this comment that performance, it's an equation. Performance is equal to potential minus distractions, right? And all of us, I personally think, are born with the same potential, right? And the only thing in the equation that determines performance is the distractions, the noise that we keep having. And when we talk about attitude, when we talk about resilience, when we talk about Manpreet was a dreamer, all of these are behavioral things that get the distractions minimized because you are a purpose led person, you're chasing a dream. And if that negative can go down, if that distractions and disorientations can go down, then everything leads to performance and performance leads to results. So that's the equation that I kind of keep thinking through. Just sit back and reflect, saying what is the distraction at that point in time, and how your dreams can actually negate that distraction and get you moving, get you the bias for action.
Hmm. No, you are someone who is, from what I have seen of you, higher energy, ambitious, that can sort of bring in, restlessness to an extent. So when things don't go your way, and grinding it out, etc., is the key. but the person you are, the drive that you have, it's difficult to have that patience, and not really. And there's also a fear that you might get into contentment and settle for what you have, etc. So not settling, vis-a-vis still being in that zone of aspiring for best and great performance. How do you balance these? And for
So,
someone, yeah.
as much as you would say and others would say, I'm restless, I'm high energy, I'm always looking out for the next dream. It's been 20 years that I've been working for PwC. 20 long years in a world where Indian economy was throwing options every now and then. I've had two international stints. I've worked in Germany, I worked in the US. There were jobs and offers that were available in that market. Why did I keep coming back to my center, right? What made me continue in that one place? And it's a very interesting thing. That restlessness and that ability to dream and the perseverance to chase the dream made me do almost like 6 or 7 jobs in these 20 years at PwC. So I actually personally think that restlessness and ambition doesn't mean you've got to hop on from one place and get to the next place. Now, if it's a part of your career plan, please absolutely do. But your ability to find the next opportunity and influence your leaders around that opportunity and creating a case for yourself and trying that is disproportionately higher when you actually stay invested in a journey. And actually, that's a point I want to amplify, because there are not a lot of dinosaurs like me who are left who spend 20 years in a company. We all hop jobs, we all change jobs. Every change gets you 40% increment. So it's very tempting to change, right? And each time it gives you an opportunity to change your role and do different things. But I can tell you, when you spend disproportionate time in a place, your ability to geometrically grow, exponentially grow, and create an influence of making company do things that would be difficult to do when somebody else is pulling you out in a new role, is significantly higher. So, and that's a big one. So, for example, in my current role at
Mhm.
PwC, I'm the CDO. We are a services company. The ability and the dream to create a product business out of a services company, a super successful services company, is an absolute outlandish dream. But we're chasing that. Now, for me to expect to get hired by another services company for my services capability and start chasing a product story won't happen. For another company to hire a chartered accountant and make them a chief digital officer sort of ain't happening. I got the role because I spent 20 years. People know you can get things done. There is a certain credibility. There is a clear belief in the attitude because of which the company will experiment and risk on you. Versus another third person may or may not. They'd hire you for your strengths and ask you to box yourself in those strengths. So inherently, I actually think when you stay in one company for longer, and if you have the right attitude, you're far more adventurous than somebody who likes to just change jobs. That's not adventure. That's just cashing yourself too low. Sorry, I'm just coming up with an opinion here, but I strongly believe that.
No, that actually touches upon like part of my career coaching. I have 3 to 4 conversations a week, and this question sort of crops up frequently, saying, how long do I stay in a role? And there are people look at it different way. Like you said, every switch gets me a 30-40% hike, and I keep moving. So should I keep moving and growing, or should I stay and grow? I think the point that you're making is very valid. Um, Someone who is hiring you for your strengths and want to maximize on your strengths. But if you are growing within a ecosystem, then they're not just looking at your strengths, but they can take bets on you, which an outside firm would not. And you can push yourself, you can push your case in that sense. Is my how I summarized what you said?
No, absolutely, Ram. You have, uh, and I again want to glamorize once again in saying, if you can't grow within your own organization despite spending the years in the firm, the problem's not with the firm. The problem's with you, and you should work with all humility in terms of making yourself more relevant, because nobody knows you better than this organization where you spent so many years. So leaving that and moving on is potentially not the best option. The best option is to go back and work on yourself, and this organization will make you work. Give you the opportunity to work on yourself. So very clearly, I think that's definitely beneficial.
So, just a follow-up question on that. If someone is in a scenario where they have been in the organization for some time, but not really getting the opportunities and attention that they're looking for, what would you suggest are the ways for them to influence the decision makers, management, put a case for themselves?
So, I mean, it just goes back to the same old life skills, right? There are a
Mm.
lot of people. First of all, half the world thinks there's only 20% of the organization that plays a sales role. I don't think there's any role in the firm that does not have a sales role built into it. So, you're either not dreaming, or you're not able to communicate that dream effectively, or you're not able to influence people. All of these are capabilities that are extremely, extremely important, right? And a lot of times, when I talk to young talent and go back and say, oh, the company is not thinking about me, or the company is not promoting me, or the company is not making me do something else. I really feel like doing this, but they're boxing me into this. I mean, have you even really stepped into the shoes of your boss or your promoter to pitch it in a way as to why it's a win-win? Striking a win-win relationship is the most critical element, in success of life. That's where sales happen as well. When you make a win-win, when I'm dealing with Ram, I'll try and make sure that it's a fair deal where he gains and I gain. And when we get to that piece, you have a invested relationship, right? But unfortunately, a lot of people kind of find that today as a near obligation, that my boss is thinking about me, my company is thinking about me. You control things that you can control. So my point is, because you spent years in the firm, because you know what the opportunity is, because you have an innate desire or a capability or a dream to work into that opportunity, please put that on a piece of paper, create a pitch, and start pitching that, start influencing people. Influence based leadership is the highest level of leadership capability that anybody will ever get to, right? Even a prime minister of the country has to influence people to get the votes and then eventually becomes the prime minister. It's a given. Then why, as an assistant manager in a company or a manager as a company, you take things for granted? Start building that skill today. And if you are able to influence, if you are able to make a point, trust me, you will soon land up being the leader of that dream, because it was your baby, your idea. You were the innovator. When I look at unicorns around me, and I keep hearing the 28-year-old unicorn and a 29-year-old unicorn promoter kind of running that business, I go back and challenge my teams that, as a 28-year-old, you could leave the company and set up your own business and potentially be a unicorn. But why? What stops you from making that unicornish idea in the company and let the company back that, and you grow and be the leader in that business? We hold ourselves back. We just box ourselves saying, "Hey, मेरी company सुनेगी नहीं." That's not the business that they're in. So don't hold back. Same things: perseverance, attitude, curiosity, genuine relationships, the ability to pitch, influence are the same vital skills that will help you get the next role in the company. And even if you, for a minute, let's assume, not get that role, the people that you engaged with in the process will handpick you for the next ventures, because they know the attitude that you brought to the table, the desire that you bring to the table, the passion that you bring to the table. I mean,
Brilliant.
another, sorry, slight trajectory to this, Ram. Another
Mm.
thing that I've kind of realized is some of the best relationships that I built was when I was growing up in the firm, as a manager in the firm, as a senior consultant in the firm. People I worked with either at clients or in PwC are all people who are C-suite today in the market, right? And we sell to them, we buy from them, you know. And today, it's not as though I don't make relationships today, but I'm just saying some of the most genuine, authentic relationships were when my peers were not in positions of power and I was not in a position of power. But the genuine curiosity and genuine relationships, your ability to influence people with the idea, some of those coffee conversations around, let's change the world. If I had the money, I would set this startup. And when Zomato was not on the table, I remember 10 years back in that small firm, sipping a coffee with somebody in Bombay, we had said, food delivery platform aggregator would be such a great business. Didn't have the
Mm.
money, didn't have the courage, never set that business up. But 10 years later, when that business got set up, that guy called me, we had a nice laugh, and he's now a buyer, right? He's a C-suite in one of the other companies, and we still do business together. So those are the relationships that stay for life. So my suggestion is, uh, build those relationships now when they mean nothing other than just pure relationship. Business will happen on the sidelines.
Fantastic. And again, it again goes back to the three success mantras where you said the last one being networking, not from a short term ROI benefit point of view, but purely with the intent of building relationships. I see a common thread in all that you're sharing. Great to see that. And you spoke about making your story, crafting your desired path, and influencing selling with your management leadership, and make it happen. Any specific tips that you would share in terms of how to build a story? Because a lot of people will say, I probably am not happy with what I'm doing, I want to do more, I want to be more, but not really sure about how to craft their path. Like how the amount of conviction that you had about, I want to be in risk business. I'm not sure how many of us will have that conviction and clarity, and the different journeys that you have traversed across. And people always say it's easy to join dots backwards, but having a plan requires a lot of self-awareness and conviction, etc. So what tips would you offer for someone who needs help in terms of how to make that plan, and then pitching it to the management comes later?
So one of the very big in PwC, we call it step into the shoes of the others, step into the shoes of the client, step into the shoes of the team. And I just and while it's a piece of English, it is a very deep connotation. So and if you can master that art, you will always be able to influence and pitch and get your way forward. So a lot of times when we are in the middle of thinking ideas, or when we are in the middle of career change, or when we are in the middle of a frustration, we are so engrossed in our own selves and our emotion takes over that you're never able to step into the shoes of the next person. You are like, mere saath acha nahi hua, my life, my friend is growing, I need money, this, I was the best in the college, I don't seem to be the best in the company, the other guy got promoted. I mean, we have to the ability to step outside of your own emotion and think from a company context, or think from a supervisor's context, or think from another employer's context, is the first thing that needs to be brought to the table. Very, very difficult to do. And that's where initially, when you're not able to do that, you go to a coach, you go to a friend, you go to a somebody who's independent of that problem, so that person can reflect, help you nudge, and help you think from a company context, saying what is in it for them. Because if you can articulate what is in it for them, why is it first more good for them than me, you will automatically be the good guy in that deal. Because it's much easier for you to move around and be the leader in that dream. But where we go wrong very often is we're not able to step beyond our own emotion. We are just too inward looking. And in the life, whether you're a CEO of a company or you're an assistant manager on the ground, the beauty lies in a CEO will not design a product basis what he feels or wants to use. He's going to design that for what the world needs, right? Like that whole Ikagai story also, I'm sure we've all read that book, right? It eventually says what you're trying to do, is the world valuing that? Is there a need for that? That's an outside in view. It's very, very important. So I just think, Coach Ram, put simply, I don't know whether it specifically answers your question, either build that muscle where you're able to step beyond and step into the shoes of your supervisor or a company or an employer to pitch the story so they would put their money on it rather than personalizing that story. And if you can't do that because you don't have that muscle, find a friend who can step away from that emotion and help you anchor or curate that story. You do it 10 times, 11th time you have the muscle already built.
Perfect. And on a lighter note, that's the business of coaches, to
Yeah,
to help you.
absolutely. No, I've gone through personally, at least two rounds of coaching. One was way back in 2008. I was in Germany, and I had the firm had offered me the ability, whatever, had supported me in taking some external coaching, about 10 odd sessions, and they were game changers. Because, again, as I said, in that 20-year journey, there are distractions, there are disillusionments about, should I change a country? Should I change my role? Should I actually go for a Harvard MBA? I'm just a CA. Why not do something else? You had the money, you had the options, you had the opportunities. And some of those moments of reflection, which we don't normally do, the coaches are
Mm.
able to do for you. I mean, they don't have the answers, but they ask you the questions that make you think, and then they become your own answers, and that's really, really helpful. that gives you the perseverance to continue doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. There are a couple of questions that have come in, so let me put one of them here. So this is Venkat, who is saying that I've seen people growing in one company in terms of their career, but not financially. Um, what would you suggest?
So again, I agree and I disagree. I agree because the outlook that I may have. So, I mean, I'll give you again, this is in a personal capacity. So, treat this as comments from Manpreet and not from somebody who works for PwC. So, calling that out. I mean, I joined the firm at, you know, I mean, I'm happy to share the data, right? I joined the firm at a 3.5 lakh rupee salary per annum. That's where I started. In about
Mm,
12 months' time, I had one of my good colleagues who referred me into the firm leave for about a 7.5 lakh salary. For a 3.5 guy to see a person leave in a 7.5 lakh salary in about 12 months is like, boy, that's almost double the number. And the whole IT outsourcing industry was mushrooming at that point in time. He went into that role. His role changed to more working and pitching to global customers. He was flying all the time. For a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, that was as glamorous as it could get.
mm,
I was disillusioned for a second, and then I kind of stepped back and said, what is the purpose? Where is it that I'm headed? I want to be the best risk guy in the market, right? Not get boxed into one company being a back office of that company. And I stayed on. 12 months later, I became the next level, and my starting salary was 7 lakhs plus bonus. So I kept, I mean, after one or two such rounds, I kind of figured out saying, while at that point, you always feel the next job is going to give you 40, 50, 60% extra. But if I were to draw a statistical model, staying in a company can keep you 15% to 20% down from where the market is. That's all, at best. But exponential opportunities that get created because the company's known you so well and you know the underlying culture so well are significantly more. So, personally, for me, to have invested 10, 15, 20 years at a 15% less comp point to the exponential opportunities that got created for my life and career is a clear ROI that I am more in favor of. Having said that, I can't do one size fits all, Venkat. If you've done your bit and you think that gap is beginning to be 50, 60, 70% over a long run, feel free to change. I mean, people can't be exploiting you. But don't take a short term because I see, I mean, a lot of people who move out, we do a conversation, sir, 50% salary बढ़ गया. Fast forward your career 12 months in the same company. You are on the cusp of a promotion. You get promoted, you go to another 40% increment. What is the delta you're looking at? And in the next job, by the way, you will slow down because you will take time to settle. You will take time to get into your areas of interest. You will take time for people to notice you. For all you care, your next promotion in the current company is faster than the next promotion in the next company. So fast, when you take a career decision to change, fast forward your life 12 months and then do a comparison. Very often that change will not look very lucrative.
interesting. I I like this statistical model and comparison. I think in while we while the immediate peer comparisons sort of can be compelling, a slightly long term view can help you take a more rational decision.
See, I can tell you, Venkat, I've in my 20 years in the firm seen, if nothing else, 100 good friends leave, right? And they're all, when you leave from a big four, you go for good jobs, you make good careers. It's not as though they haven't grown and they haven't become C-suite, and they're all good friends. I can consistently tell you, I've had no regrets financially sitting where I'm sitting, simply because you're, as I keep saying, exponential growth and opportunities lead to eventually compensations. So it's the role. I mean, compensation is a consequence. It can't be that I'm an assistant manager and suddenly I'm going to make 5x the money. I mean, no company will do that. It's the role that gets you the money, and role comes from your ability to succeed, and the ability to succeed in a family is always higher than the ability to succeed in a culture outside of your family.
Brilliant. Here's another question from Syed. Um, my short answer would be not to look at internally, but to this could be anomaly is what I feel. But I leave it to you if you want to take it and respond to it.
No, so Imran, my point is, and it happens. No, it's not as though we've not grown up saying, "Arey, uska to mai baap hai company ke andar, and therefore he grows." Arey, he has a bias towards that one person. But Imran, I again think that's emotion speaking. for a minute, step outside of that emotion and step into the shoes of that same boss who you don't like and say, what drives success for that guy? Get into a room, wake up in the morning, and say, I want to do everything possible to make my boss, the guy I don't like, supremely successful. What will I do to make sure my boss gets 3 promotions in the next 3 years? क्या कर सकता हूँ मैं? We never have that positive emotion because we are in our own deep negative emotion. If you think of that, what can I do to make my boss extremely successful? You will pop up with 3 ideas, come up with 3 ideas where you will see that you can be a hero of an idea and then start anchoring that idea for the good of the boss. And rest assured, the trust deficit that exists today between you and your boss and the preference your boss has with this old person who's worked with him across organizations, you will begin to start getting into those shoes. So that's going to be a big one. It's just that, see, nobody, I would go with that assumption 90% of the people wake up and come to office not to play politics. They wake up and come to office because they're either connected with the purpose or they want to be extremely successful in the areas that they're working in. And unfortunately, all our energies get centered, distractions around the 10% flaws that we see in a person. Let's play, let's exploit the 90% positive energy that everybody brings to office and be a part of that energy. You're bound to grow. Nobody can hold you back. But those ideas stay in our mind. We don't talk to them. We don't talk to people. So, yeah, I mean, this may be a little distraction, but my 12-year-old, for a
Mhm.
teacher that he is most scared of, to impress her, baked cookies on her birthday to hopefully lure and impress her teacher. So he went through the whole YouTube recipe, made a nice cookie, put all chocolate chips, fantastic. Didn't let any one of us taste it, saying it's only for my ma'am, and with a very with a intent of impressing her teacher, right? He was being
Okay.
cheeky. He went to the teacher and said, "Ma'am, happy birthday, some cookies for you," and she said, "No, you guys enjoy." And he felt deeply offended that she was, I mean, he almost felt she was rude. She doesn't care. She any which ways doesn't like me because she keeps changing my seat each time she come to the class because I'm a talkative guy in the class. Right? It's a story cooking in his mind. And it's been 3 months that the story's been there. I mean, she doesn't like me any which ways. She's a tough teacher. Da 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 da. The other day we were talking to the teacher, and on a lighter note, I picked up that topic about the cookies and how she didn't kind of accept them. And she just complete miscommunication, right? She just said, oh, I had no context of somebody having baked the cookies by his hand. He was not communicative enough. It just felt like he's, opening a box of cookies and offering some cookies. And I said, no, you guys have fun. I'm not a cookie person. So a lot of times these notions keep staying in our mind when we need to be more expressive and we need to do things to make the other guy feel that we care for them, genuinely interested in making the other person grow. Oh, we've lost Coach Ram. We'll give a minute for Coach Ram to come in.
Yes. Sorry for that.
No problems.
Yeah. So I missed the ending of the cookie story. So how did your son feel?
No, so nothing. I'm just saying my son was obviously dejected because he went with the cookies and the teacher said, no, you guys just enjoy it between yourself. There was no
Okay.
feeling of warmth or gratitude or anything. And he started cooking stories. She doesn't like me. She changes my seat. Da 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 da. And 4 months later, when I met the teacher, we were chit chatting on a lighter note. When I picked that story up, she just came back and said, for me, I mean, the boy was not expressive enough, right? He just went in, offered cookies. She's not a cookie person. She says, you guys have fun. Maybe it was a packet of cookies that was just being thrown at her. But he didn't bring the whole emotion behind the story. He was not expressive enough and labeled all the problems as the teacher's problem. She was all gaga when I told the whole story to her. So I think we've got to start taking ownership of problems and control things that we can control than saying, "Oh, world is a problem."
Hmm. So, so
Hi
I really
Bhavani, I
like.
just saw your comment. So glad that you're here. Honored.
Oh yeah, I can see an audit connection, and I'm sure both of you. I know Bhavna. Hi Bhavna.
Bhavani,
She's
Bhavani.
Bhavani. Yeah.
Infosys, yeah.
Yeah. She's on a coaching journey herself. So met her at a recent coaches conference.
Fantastic.
So I like what you said. We usually tell our leaders saying, if you want to grow, help your team members grow, and that's how you grow, right? But you sort of inverted it, and you said, think about
Make the
how.
company grow, make the boss grow, make the customer grow.
Hmm. And that sort of, it's a breath in fresh air. So it's something new, and you have seen that work for yourself, Manpreet.
All the time. I mean, in fact, it's more institutional. I mean, I've personally, when you pick up a project for a company, while you're
Mhm.
constantly thinking how will that help the company, you ought to think how will it help the project sponsor? How will it make the project sponsor grow? And there's nothing wrong in that because they are equal stakeholders. So if you're able to connect the dots, you get through what is called win-win relationships, and that's what it should be.
Hmm.
That's where trust gets built.
You spoke about sort of demystifying politics of sorts, and you said no one really comes to be a bad guy out there, etc. But I'm sure you would have had a fair share of not so great bosses or not so great leaders. How do you deal with it? You just wait it out. The culture of the organization will take care of itself, or what's your attitude when you're working with someone who is not a great leader of sorts?
First, in my mind, don't box a person as, I mean, you can box a person as excellent and great, but that boxing a person with a negative emotion is only going to cause you pain. I mean, you hold this bottle of water for 5 minutes, it's not going to cause a problem. I hold this bottle for 1 hour, it'll be a problem. I hold this bottle for a day, I'll possibly get paralyzed, right? So if you are holding that emotion while working on a job, saying my boss is not good, my customer is not good, and you hold that feeling inside you for a very long time, only you will have a heart attack. बॉस को कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला, right? So you have to vent this out, you have to clear that emotion, and no better way than making yourself vulnerable. Everybody has a heart, everybody has a EQ. We don't often have the courage of walking up to that person in a polite way and opening up a topic and seeking help.
Hmm.
Coach Ram, I'm mustering the courage to pick up a conversation with you about a negative emotion that I keep getting. And maybe I'm mistaken, but I still want to put this on the table and get your guidance as to how I can manage it. I've not been confrontational with Ram right now, but I still mustered the courage by putting the center of attention on him and seeking advice.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Partha, I love the compliment. It's just that Manpreet Kaur Brar was Femina Miss India. I'm nowhere close to half as beautiful as she was. I'm Manpreet Singh Ahuja. But I know after Manpreet Brar became the big one, a lot of people called me Brar.
Maybe he's pushing you to attempt for Mr. India.
Mhm. I've never dreamt of that, and I'm a little practical about my strengths.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. He's saying sorry, so that's perfectly
No, no,
fine. So
not at all, Partha. It doesn't matter. नाम में क्या रखा है?
yeah. Great. So I'm sure you would have, many people would have reached out to you for career advice. Bhavana is saying hi here to you. Yeah. So yes. Hi, Bhavana. Nice to see you here. So many people would have reached out to you for career advice, and want to bounce off a conversation with you, and you would have seen many careers grow and not really grow, etc. Uh, For careers which have not grown, what do you think are the common mistakes that they have done?
So the layer of insecurity in a mind is one of the biggest reasons that slows you down. I mean, I've seen a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people go back and not hire people smarter than them in their teams because they are not very secure. So, if you're in that frame that is always wanting to make your boss succeed and you're always wanting to make your team succeed, it is a given. It is an absolute given. Hey, Sarab, good to see you, man. You don't need to be here, but yeah, absolutely a pleasure to see you here. So, you don't need to worry about your career. अगर आप if you're making your boss successful, if you're making your subordinate successful, they're slogging their butts out for you. The team is making you succeed and the boss is wanting you to succeed because there's a convergence. That convergence is the art of success in a corporate world. When it becomes your world and my world and I want to grow, then you don't fit into that equation. So I, Coach Ram, just genuinely believe when you don't mesh in that world and don't immerse yourself in that world and you want to stand out at your terms, then it doesn't help. You know, if you're a part of that same equation, the company is growing, the boss is growing, you're growing, your team is growing, you will always succeed. So when I look at my own self right now, as I said, I've got 17 years ahead of me. I have many people in my team who I can guarantee are smarter and sharper and better than what I was at their age.
Mm.
Now somebody can go back and tell me saying, oh, maybe 5 years later, they are the smarter dudes who'll actually be your bosses. Absolutely, that could be.
Mm.
But that shouldn't hold me from getting the best people from down below, because in these 5 years, they will give me tremendous growth and success and create opportunities that I can't even dream of today.
So insecurity can sort of hold someone back and
Yeah, yeah.
stagnate things.
As I said, potential equals to performance minus distractions. All negative emotions are distractions, right? And you've got to kill them as much as we can. I mean, some of the people now say meditation helps, right? How does meditation help your career? I mean, it shouldn't. It's got no connection, right? It actually takes away an hour from your life. It helps because it kills the negative emotion. It kills the distractions. It gets you a more sort of stable, standing, and that exceeds your performance. That increases your potential to succeed.
Well, closer to meditation, here is a question from Naveen. How do you manage your mind, body, and soul on a daily basis?
Wow, fantastic, Naveen. Naveen, this is still work in progress. I don't think I've cracked the answer yet, but as I'm getting a little gray, my mind is opening up to this. So this is again something personal, but I will share it with the group. About 5 years back, I was actually in another round of coaching with somebody I've really looked up to. A senior C-suite guy who's now retired, more a fatherly person to me, but so we met the first time for coffee, met the next time. He loved the energy, enthusiasm, action, dreams, the innate desire to succeed and make the companies be successful. All of that was great. And then he came up and gave feedback saying, Manpreet, you know what? Uh, your stool of success is standing on just one leg. And that one leg seems to be work, PwC, success, corporate relationships. I mean, your job seems to be your definition of success, and that stool is not very stable, and you have to kind of assume that that leg will get shaky at some point. It may not be shaky now, it could get shaky 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years from now, whenever. And when it shakes, the whole stool will become unstable, and you may not necessarily be able to stand back again. So if you can make those 3 or 4 legs of that stool in the happy times, then your stool will always be stable enough for any leg to get broken, and yet you having the time to repair it and get back to action. And he gave me 4 corners. The first one was exactly the mind, body, soul, a piece that you
Mhm.
don't often spend time on. Some people, dudes, can say it's a waste of time, it takes an hour away from life. Second was health. Third was the whole family, and the last was community. And he said, you got to work on all the 4 pillars and strengthen all the 4 pillars. And the second thing that I heard, and again something very personal, in our desire to network, which I kept talking about, we land up spending the most time with people who matter the least to our lives. because वो aspirational है. And people who matter the most to our lives, our coziest of friends, our coziest of families, our coziest of mentors, we take them for granted and we spend least amount of time. So that's another balancing that we got to do within our lives, where we are able to disproportionately invest in relationships that matter the most while continuing to expand that circle of influence. So those were two bits that sort of are action points for me personally that I'm working back with my coach on, and I leave the messages back with you guys as well.
Fantastic. We've almost hit the time. We are at 12:01, and that's 1 hour of great conversation, insights, free flowing. And as we head to closure, so Manpreet, I know we started with the three career mantras where you spoke about humility, curiosity, and building our relationships. And as we wrap it up, any parting notes that you'd like to share in terms of how one should look at their careers and what one needs to do to build their careers in the right way.
I'm going to repeat the same message: be a dreamer. That's extremely important. Be absolutely resilient, where in that dream you fail 20 times, you have the ability to stand up and chase another micro dream in that pursuit of that big dream. That's the second most important thing. The third most important thing is attitude, which brings in a layer of humility, to constantly absorb and learn from people who are doing better than you. Don't be jealous of them. Be genuinely appreciative of them and learn from them. It's a very big life. There are a zillion problems in this world that need to be solved, and there is a space for all of us. So absorb and learn from them rather than being jealous of them, and genuinely invest in relationships, not because they will give you something. Networking is a bad word in a way that it has an element of greed coming in. It's genuinely invest in relationships, about wanting the relationships to succeed. You will succeed in the process. Ankush, good to see you, buddy. It's been a while.
And what's your reservoir of resilience? How do you build that resilience muscle?
I don't know if I have a better answer, Ram. I just think it's all interrelated, right? It's the dreams that get you to be resilient. You fail a day today and अभी बोलो मैं failure से कैसे succeed करूँगा, नहीं करोगे. If you have the next love, next life, next dream, you're automatically going to get up. If you're out of dreams, then you will not get up. Life is over. So just I just go back, and I know everybody will have their own inner authentic leadership style, but you've got to identify what is it that can drive you back again. And that's important. I today have a meniscus tear. I used to be a state athlete. I had a 400-meter state record on my name when I was growing up.
Hmm.
Today I have a meniscus tear, and doctors told me don't run, and I couldn't potentially run for a while. Started trying with golf. Yeah, I'm a starter today in golf, but it's okay. Golf का सपना देख रहा हूँ तो golf शुरू कर दूंगा. So it's your ability to dream is what gets you resilient, honestly, and it's the resilience that feeds into dreaming.
Fantastic. Great. I don't think we'll ever get like I think one of the viewers mentioned, we'll never get tired of listening to the anecdotes and the wisdom that you have to share. But time is of essence, and thank you so much for sharing an hour of your time. As you can see, definitely a lot of people have benefited, and this recording is going to stay live for another year on this platform, and I'm sure at least a few more thousands will listen to this. And those of you who want to connect with Manpreet, I've just put out the LinkedIn, his LinkedIn handle here. I'm sure you can connect with him and take the conversation forward. So thank you so much, Manpreet. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Love this, Ram. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys. See you.